Je ne sais pas si on reste en Europe parce qu'on va parler de la Grande-Bretagne maintenant, donc je passe la parole à un autre exilé, Colin Hay.
C'est toujours un grand plaisir de venir à Bordeaux, la cité de mes rêves, ou quelques-uns de mes rêves, puisque je suis un grand admirateur et amateur des vins de Bordeaux, et que j'écris de temps en temps pour les revues œnologiques, et notamment sur le vin de Bordeaux. Mais je ne suis pas ici pour parler de mes rêves. En fait, vous m'avez invité, je pense, pour parler de cauchemars, les miens ou ceux des autres. Alors, pour le meilleur ou pour le pire, je suis ici pour discuter le REF, le fameux processus pour l'évaluation de la qualité de recherche en Grande-Bretagne. Mais pour parler d'une manière plus précise sur les choses qui sont, je pense, tellement importantes, je vais continuer en anglais, la langue de REF. Okay. My role, I think, on this panel is maybe a little bit different from the others, and I maybe need to explain that. I'm as Andy said at the beginning, I'm not a funder of research, and the REF, in a sense, is a funder of research in an interesting kind of a way. So I speak really as a peer reviewer, as a former peer reviewer, and in fact as the chair of the peer review panel responsible for REF, for politics, the discipline of politics and international studies, in 2014. The funder at that time was the Higher Education Funding Council, which has now actually been replaced by something called the Office for Students, but which continues. There's a new REF process which is now underway, and will report in 2021, 2022. I'm not here, I think, to, as it were, to represent REF, nor necessarily to defend REF, but to talk about how it operated and operates, and in particular how it thinks about and set about evaluating research impact, which was new to it in the 2014 exercise. So one of my tasks as the chair of the panel evaluating this for politics and international studies was to lead the team that was responsible for doing that in the discipline against published criteria, but where there was a certain amount of discretion about how we went about the task. So I want to explain that a little bit. But perhaps before that, just one further introductory comment, which is, in the British system, there are essentially two separate and quite discrete ways of publicly funding research. There are the research councils, to which one applies if one has a project of research that one wishes funding, in much the same way that's exists in all national contexts in Europe and exists at European level too. But REF is separate from that and different from that. It produces a form of funding which is called QR funding, quality-related general funding, and the idea is it provides a retrospective evaluation of the research produced by a department, or typically called a unit of assessment, over a period of time, and then in one sense it rewards that with general funding, which the institution can use however it wishes to use. So it can use that to fund primary research, fundamental research, blue skies research, or indeed it could use it to fund more applied research. It's very much up to the institution how it does that. That perhaps implies that REF is a more neutral process, however, than it is, because REF evaluates certain things. It evaluates the three elements of the evaluation, the second of which was new to 2014, that's impact. So it evaluates three things. It evaluates the quality of published research outputs, typically books, journal articles, and so forth, which, if I remember correctly, was worth 65% of the evaluation last time. It then evaluates research impact, and it's that I want to talk most about. That was worth 20% of the evaluation. And in fact, that figure will rise to 25% in the 2021 exercise. So impact is becoming more important in the evaluation, and hence in the funding formula going forward. And it also evaluates a more modest part of the assessment a statement produced by the department or unit of assessment about its research environment, in a sense, which looks qualitatively and quantitatively at things like PhD completion rates and research grants competitively won and processes like that. But each is, in a sense, a peer review qualitative evaluation by a committee nominated by the profession, the discipline itself. So as the chair of the Politics and International Studies panel, I was nominated by the equivalent of the RFSP, the British Political Studies Association, and the British International Studies Association, and the other members of the panel were similarly nominated. Okay, impact. So for the 2014 exercise, for the first time, REF, which stands for the Research Excellence Framework, evaluated impact, contributing 20% to the overall assessment. Impact was defined in effect as the societal benefits credibly arising from research conducted in the department, say, the department making its submission to the assessment. More officially, an impact was defined in rather broad terms as an effect on, change or benefit to the economy, society, culture, public policy or services, health, the environment or quality of life beyond academia. So there's a recognition that in evaluating impact, one was not evaluating academic impact. That was dealt with elsewhere. So by impact here is meant societal impact, non-academic impact. Departments in the exercise were required to submit their impact in the form of impact case studies. You remember this is a retrospective evaluation, evaluating a period of, in the last exercise, 7 years. And so the idea was that roughly for every 10 members of staff, a submitting unit would return 1 impact case study, which could arise from the research of an individual or could arise from the research of a group of individuals and could in fact arise from the research of a group of individuals at more than one institution. In fact, they needn't necessarily belong, all of them, to the institution that was making the submission or return. So 1 impact case study for roughly every 10 full-time equivalent staff members. So that meant for a department like the University of Oxford, that was something like 15 impact case studies. But for some other departments, it was as few as 2. 2 was actually the minimum. So there were some departments that were so small that they had fewer than 10 staff members, but they're still required to submit 2. There was a minimum threshold of 2. These impact case studies were evaluated by the academic members of the panel, but aided by practitioner, or what they were called user members of the panel, who were also nominated by the professional associations. But essentially, these were non-academics in the public, private, or third sector with some experience in their professional lives of drawing on academic research and incorporating it into the work of the organization for which they worked, if you like. For the academic the academic members of the panel, and indeed the non-academic members of the panel, they were nominated by the professional associations. In the case of the user members, for our panel, they came from journalism, from government, from NGOs, from business, from think tanks, and from the third sector, from charitable bodies too. And we worked collectively on the evaluation of each of the impact case studies. An impact case study is a relatively short document, 5 or 6 pages in each case, in which the submitting department is required to set out 4 things, basically. Firstly, a short summary of the impact claim. What is the public good or benefit that you are claiming to have contributed towards, and in what way? Secondly, a description of the so-called underpinning research. So what is the body of research work which you claim as yours from which this impact arose. So that was typically a list of publications, a list of research grants, a statement about the basic research which was leading to the impact. So you couldn't just claim an impact, you had to identify and link it with a body of research, in a sense. Thirdly, an account of what was called the pathway to impact, which I think is fairly close to what was described as a theory of change, if you like. So what is your account of how this underpinning research, what was the process through which you went to generate the impact that you claim? What's your description of that process? The process in and through which the research came to lead to contribute to the claimed impact. And then finally, evidence both of the impact generated and of the credibility of the claimed pathway to impact. So, is this a genuine claim, well evidenced and well documented where appropriate? So that part was really sources which the panel could use to corroborate the claim. Now there are of course serious methodological difficulties in making claims of that kind, and I think one of my jobs as the panel chair was to try to kind of reassure the community submitting these claims that the panel was aware of those methodological difficulties and wasn't going to expect, as it were, the same degree of corroborating evidence for every single impact claim that was made. Some claims are more easy to substantiate than others, and that was there was a recognition of that. So as a panel, we reviewed 181 impact case studies from all areas of the discipline. Interestingly, all areas of the discipline, including political theory, political philosophy, and IR theory, international relations theory, produced impact case studies which were judged by the panel to be of the highest quality. It's one of the things that we were keen to point out in the retrospective reporting at the end, that it wasn't the case that impact case studies were stronger where they arose from more obviously applied research. There was plenty of evidence of impact case studies that did very well, which arose from theoretical abstract research in a sense. That said, the panel also noted that many impact case studies were strong where they drew on extensive qualitative research conducted in the field. Sort of the kind of knowledge of the field that generated led to, it seemed, greater propensity to produce strong impact. What else shall I say? There was a number of questions that we were asked, in a sense, to think about in preparing for this panel, and maybe it's worth just very, very briefly in my last couple of minutes running through those. So expectations about impact generation in REF. In one sense, in REF, there are no expectations about impact generation. There is a retrospective reward for it, but that's not quite the same thing, I think. There is also, I think, no need for all researchers within a department to be actively engaged in impact for the department to do fantastically well in impact. So that I think it's a misconception in REF, which sometimes creeps into the public discussion of it, that all researchers are expected to be producing impact all of the time and for all of their research. REF is also a mechanism for funding lots of research which perhaps isn't credibly going to produce impact, at least in the short term, and it is a general mechanism for funding research. How important was impact? Well, it's 20%, rising to 25% in 2021. Where did the impact agenda come from? It came originally from government. In a sense, the Higher Education Funding Council, when it negotiated with government for REF 2014, government said, well, you can have the REF, this general funding of research, but only if you incorporate within it the evaluation of the public goods generated by this research. So impact needs to be embedded in REF, in the research evaluation process, for it to continue. And now that is rising to 25%. So there's a clear sense that this is a mechanism of holding public funding to account, and it's held to account in terms of the impact or public good it generates. Preferred forms of impact or mediation, I think none really. I think the idea was to was to welcome any and all credible claims to impact and to try to write the documentation to encourage a diversity of impact claims, as it were. Retrospective feedback, well, there is plenty. Indeed, all of the impact case studies are now public documents. Some of them have had the confidential information taken out of them and have been redacted in that way, but practically all impact case studies are available online. You can see what departments submitted. You can't see how they were scored. You can draw your own conclusions, but you can. They're public documents. And the distinction between basic and applied research, I think that distinction is drawn, but I think what we found was that basic research could also lead to credible impact claims, and REF is actually a mechanism for maintaining the funding of basic research. In one sense, it's the only mechanism in the UK system that does that. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin.